Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. I'm your host, Jefferson K. Rogers. Got a special guest in the studio with us today, Mr. Brandon Neal, and of course, my co-host, Jeff Fieldstad, here with us today.
What's up, guys?
Excited to jam with you guys today. We've done podcasts before with each other on the Solid podcast.
A while ago.
That was a while ago now, so looking forward to catching up, jamming, talking about business, and some things that help you reach a very high level of success over your career. And now, getting to work with JKR Windows, really excited about some of the stuff we got coming down the pipeline.
Pumped, man. Excited to be here with you guys. Yeah.
Cool. So the topic of the day that Brandon decided we could talk about was the correlation between strength and happiness. Would love to hear your thoughts about the correlation between strength and happiness.
Yeah, this sounds like some philosophical shit.
I'm
Brandon,
used to his
thoughts.
philosophy now. Watching
As long
him
as
on-
everybody, as long as we
his-
get everybody to believe it, it'll work.
Yep.
That's the trick,
For
right?
sure.
You see that in politics. As long as they can get people to believe it, even if it's not true,
It works.
it works. But
Well, I don't know about that, bro. I don't know. The current
it doesn't work. They
administration-
think it works.
That's different.
So they can actually make it so that, it doesn't work, but they still think it works.
Yeah.
That's,
The
that's
bigger the
magic.
lie, the more believable it is, it seems, these days.
Yeah, it's true. It's
We're
so-
not talking
so
about
backwards.
that, though. This is like some real life philosophy and success principles
Yeah.
that are proven. And the principles of success they're simple and they're duplicatable and they're universal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think strength and happiness go hand in hand. I just think that's really true. If you think about just think about your life and think about when maybe we can talk about physical, we can talk about mental, we can talk about financial. When you're weak in any one of those areas, it's not as fun. And when you're not having as much fun, you're not as happy.
Well, I've always said that I don't think that if you're lacking in one of those areas, you've actually become successful, right? And we all have our different definitions of success, but I think success is having it all, right? I've always said if you can't have it all, you should have it all.
Mm-hmm.
And, financial, fitness, faith, family, being successful in all those areas is what success is, right? I've always said if you're rich but you lost your family in the process, that's not considered success because you made a lot of money, right? But if you have this incredible family and a bunch of health, but you're broke and you can't do anything for your family, well, I don't think that's success either, right? I think if success is being able to achieve in all areas of our life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you should be able to do all of them.
Right.
And that's the misconception. And I read a book called The Happiness Advantage one time. It's like we've been taught that you have to give up one thing to have another.
That's a definition of sacrifice.
Sacrifice, exactly.
But winning isn't a sacrifice. It's an opportunity. You don't have to give up something to go achieve something. You don't have to give up your family in order to get wealthy.
And one of the things that I've started to believe, because we've all been taught that, and it's like you have to overcome your paradigms and your beliefs to start to open up your mind to a different way of thinking. But when I was reading Grant Cardone's books, he talks about things in a different way. Like you should be able to be good at all these things.
Yeah.
And there's seasons in life, and you may have to take away from one area of your life while you're focused on this other area. But there's no reason why you can't still be the best at that other thing that you're doing. You're just doing it less than you were doing it.
Right. Well, I've always said I think we have a moral and ethical obligation to be successful.
Duty.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
a moral and ethical obligation to be successful. Like most people think, oh, well, it's okay to be average. Well, okay, if it's okay to be average, then who are you helping? Because if you're not helping, you're hurting. So how does being average help somebody? Does a C student in the class help your child become better? No. And if it's not helping them become better, it is hurting them. So why is it different for us in life? Because we're not inspiring anybody. We're not inspiring ourselves. We're not inspiring our family. We're not inspiring people around us. So then if we're not helping anybody, then we are hurting because then we become takers of society. And if we're not givers, giving inspiration, giving knowledge, giving more value, whatever it may be, I think that's where the ethical part of it. And then the moral part of it is internally, do I believe that I'm doing the right thing by becoming successful, having a great marriage,
Right.
being physically fit? One of the things I talk to my kids all the time about is is you look at you look at dads, right? Which I'm always at sports, and you look at dads, and how many of them have these big round guts, you know?
Most, unfortunately.
Most. It's rare you see a guy actually in shape. It is a rare thing. Now, I think in Utah,
more and more it is, yeah.
It's probably more common in Utah, actually, to see a physically fit guy.
Mm-hmm.
But you leave Utah, and it's like 99% of dudes have these guts. And so I'm always, as my kids will ask me, hey, Dad, why does that guy look like that? And I just very easy, hey, he eats fast food, probably drinks soda, his choices, he doesn't go to the gym. And so I ask myself, like, is that dude inspiring people around him?
Well, and I think also the people that allow themselves to slack off in all of these areas, what is their relationship with hard work? What's their relationship with discipline? And story 2 weeks ago, I was at my son's football game, and so my kid, he's Dodger, he's 8 years old, so they're playing tackle, and one of the kids on the other team gets hit, and he's down on the field hurt, right? He's just like, he's down, he's not moving, right? So, which how hurt can you get when you're 8? Probably not very hurt, right? So what was really cool is the coach on the other team walks out, picks the kid up by the shoulder pad, doesn't get down and go, you okay? Picks him up by the shoulder pads, picks him off his feet, gets him to the other side of the field, puts him on the ground on his feet, and tells the ref, game on. And I loved it. I thought it was the way you should handle it, because these kids need to be taught, you're not hurt. Come on, Now, there's times when maybe someone's hurt, but let's face it, they're 8 years old. They're not that hurt. Mm-hmm. And it surprised me. You talk about the parents sometimes you see, and I'm hearing the parents behind me go, man, if that was my kid, I don't know how I'd feel about that. And I'm just going, see, there's the problem. Everybody's so gosh dang weak because they're trying to avoid pain. They're trying to avoid discipline. They're trying to avoid hard work. And, when you're making these statements, there would be people that would listen to this podcast that maybe aren't successful that would hear that and go, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Well, that's why you're not successful.
Exactly.
You have a terrible relationship with discipline. You have a terrible relationship with
that's such a good point, dude.
Mental. Your mental capacity is just so weak right now. Now that can either be a permanent situation or a temporary situation based on what you choose to do with it. Mm-hmm. But I just choose. I've made this decision. This has been a decision I've made. It's not something I was born with. I've just chosen that hard is what motivates me. See, the other side of hard is where all the value is. The other side of pain and discomfort is where the value is, right?
100%.
So, I mean, I think that God paired, hard work and value together for a reason, because they go together. I mean, you can't have one without the other.
Right.
So, sometimes people are always looking for ways to get, I'm not that motivated. Well, are you not that motivated, or are you just trying to avoid the work instead of going, ooh, that's work, I'm going to go towards the work.
Yep.
I'm going to go towards the hard stuff. And over time, if you continue to do that, let's just take physical stuff, for example, whether you're like my routine for a long time now, get up in the morning, cold plunge, hit the gym, go lift weights, do some bands.
You've got
some
rubber bands.
Do some Pilates. I do weights too, but I do bands. Jeff gives me crap.
Little ones. It's hard to find a weight that little.
Yeah, there's probably not a band smaller than the one I use sometimes. But it's anyway. So I'll go do that, and then I'll go run. And I run. I've been doing that every day for a long time. And in the beginning, it's painful, it's hard, but you get to a place where you almost crave it. And I don't feel like doing it every day, but the other side of that is I feel better. Mm-hmm. If I get sick, I'm sick less. I'm not sick very long. I have more strength through the day, and I am happier because I feel better. I think I look a little bit better for doing it, and then I eat decent too. So that's just physical, right? But that has to do with building this business, JKR, right? You put in all the hard work and effort and have a successful business. You're happier because not only did you build the business, but you're continuing to build the business.
Yeah.
And I think all three of us have experienced levels of success where we go, okay, we had some success, and now we're going to enjoy that success, thinking that maybe, I don't know about you guys, but thinking that I'm going to enjoy this success, and that's happiness. And what I found out was, for me, that's not where happiness is. Happiness is actually growing and building and,
continuing to challenge yourself.
Yeah, continue to fulfill your duty as where much is given, much is required, but I also think where much is required, much is given, right? So we've been blessed with all these things because we've chosen to do the work, but we've also been blessed with all the success. Well, now much is required as well. And if we don't fulfill that requirement, you're not going to be happy. You're going to get depressed.
Yep.
Right? So,
Yeah,
I agree.
there was a saying that was Thomas Jefferson, and he says that in the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
So there's all these things that we go through in life in the different stages. You know, I was just thinking the other day, and I had like this memory. A smell brought this memory back to me from when I was a kid, and like riding my bike through a neighborhood, and it was the tamarisks. And it's so cool how you can just be brought back to a place years and years ago by a smell. And some people have it a little bit more naturally than others, but this concept of the pursuit of happiness is that same kind of idea where you've got to give something up for you to become happy. But I think what I'm correlating this to when it comes from your perspective about this, how strength relates to your happiness, is you can choose to be happy no matter where you're at and what you're doing. And I didn't have the best upbringing. You know, we didn't have a ton of money, but I was a happy freaking kid. And no matter what I was doing and where I was at or who I was with, I just enjoyed myself. And it's something that I've taken on into later stages of my life, even when I was dicking around and I had problems with drugs and alcohol. I was just a happy son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And this, as you get into adulthood and you're trying to chase your dreams and you're trying to decide whether or not you want to be disciplined or develop some new habits, you can decide to be happy where you're at right now, no matter what you're going through, at what stage you're in. And some people, like I said, they have it more naturally than others, but you can see and you can acquire this new knowledge that, you know, you don't have to be miserable because you're in this place and be a victim.
Do you think there's a difference between, because I hear what you're saying, I think we can choose to be happy no matter what. We can choose that, and that's our attitude that we choose. The question I have, and I'd like to hear both of your thoughts on this, is you're choosing to be happy and have a good attitude, and you're choosing to be happy. I don't disagree with that. I think you can do that. But are you truly internally happy if you're not fulfilling your duty as a man? That's my question.
Well,
I'm just curious.
I think, you know, Jefferson, I've known you for a long time, and I feel like you have always had this like external happiness. I think I've kind of been the opposite. I've always kind of had this like chip on my shoulder, and like, not that I wasn't happy, but I never felt like, man, hey, today's awesome. In fact, I always have felt like that was a challenge for me. Even though I felt good, I never, like, I don't think, like, what I hear of other people's definition of, hey, this person is happy, and I watch them, they're smiling and just having a good old time. I'm like, well, shoot, maybe I'm just not happy then. But I am, but I'm just not this, like, external, like, hey, I need to smile and be outwardly, like, cheering or whatever. That's just not who I am, right? But I am happy. So I don't know. I think it comes back to this thing where I've always felt good, which I guess you can consider happy.
Sure.
I think we all have a different definition. But I've always felt good when I did things that were hard and then got to the other side of that hard thing. And that's why I think I've fallen in love with doing hard things, and whether it's a cold plunge or working out or achieving success in business or reading consistently or having a great marriage. None of those things are easy, but I fell in love with those things because that's where I always feel good and feel fulfilled. And whether or not that's happiness, which I think that's what it is, but whether or not it's a smile on my face all the time, I don't know that.
Yeah, everybody's definition is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And before I had started reading books or getting involved in business or taking my habits and discipline seriously, there is I don't know. I think that's why I was talking about that, because I've always had just that natural tendency to be happy.
Yeah.
Where did you learn that, or is that something you just kind of feel like you had?
I think I had a great upbringing, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I have incredible parents that, you know, my dad was pretty tough on me, but my mom just loved me and encouraged me and instilled an incredible amount of belief and confidence. And it just, you know, it's been my natural tendency because of the way that I was raised and the people that I was around. But once I was able to tap into, like 2017, 2018, I started to get this whole new level of happiness because now I'm actually going for some goals and I'm leading more of a fulfilled life and I'm starting to tap into my potential. And now I've always been happy, but there's a whole nother level out there for you. Once you can start to tap into living up to your potential as a man and a contributor, or whether it's a woman and you're starting to reach your goals and there's things that you're doing that you would have never done had you not started to hang out with those people and be exposed to new things. And now you can combine this new level of happiness and fulfillment and purpose in your life.
Well, I think you just said, I had wrote that down, purpose and fulfillment. To me, that's that's what happiness is. And I think if you're working on a purpose every single day, you're going to feel fulfilled. And that's really, to me, what happiness is, right? Whether or not it's a smile on my face, I don't really care whether or not I have to smile. But if I feel good and I feel like, man, I accomplished something, I think that's where great things happen in people's lives. And as your point from strength and happiness, or strength and fulfillment, or strength and purpose, whatever we want to call it, I do think strength is a prerequisite for those things. You have to be strong enough to overcome doing the hard shit.
Yeah.
And most people, like you already said, avoid doing the hard things. And we know this based on what most people look like. The thing I love about fitness is you can look at somebody and know their daily routine. It's very obvious whether or not they eat good and whether or not they work out. And it only takes, like I was saying this the other day, it only takes about 45 minutes and 3 good decisions on meals per day to look good. It doesn't take that much discipline. No. And if you're like me, I eat once a day usually, so it only takes 1 good decision.
Yeah.
Right?
And then think about all the other 45-minute segments that you have during your day and all the other decisions outside of just those 3. And you've got like these 4 really simple things that everybody knows about, that if you were to just change those 4 things, in 6 months to 12 months from now, you would look like a completely different person.
You
for
would.
Those dudes that have the spare tire.
Yes. And it's just not that tough to change. But the same thing comes when it's like even a marriage. Like, how hard is it to just pour into your spouse and tell them that you love them and do nice things for them and figure out their love language? And usually we speak in our love language, not actually looking for our spouses, right? Or even our kids for that matter. It's not that hard to make a couple of decisions a day.
Right.
To pour into our families. It's not that hard to make a couple of decisions a day to pour into our financial lives.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah. I would really, I mean, my one of my goals in life is really to help other people be happier, have more joy. And so, like we're talking here, you look at the majority of people, you can't really say, the majority of people aren't happy. I don't know. I don't know that, but I can see, where they're at, how they're living or whatever. And if I were to take somebody who maybe wasn't in an ideal situation, question I always ask myself, okay, where would I start? Because we've all maybe been places where we've been less disciplined than other times or whatever. And there's a lot of men out there that are super successful, that are very disciplined, that are out of shape, but they're still disciplined in other areas. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look at an Elon Musk, for example. I wouldn't say he's in the best physical shape, but that dude's changing the world, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
So I don't mean to make this sound cookie cutter, but I do believe for probably the vast majority of men out there, where you could start is your physical abilities. Start working out, start eating right for a start. I just think that leads to so many other areas, and if you would just get healthy and it's not going to happen overnight, but just like you say, 3 days a week, 45-minute sessions, eat decent, and just stay really consistent with that. I mean, sometimes people go, I got to give it 100% every day, and I don't believe that. I'd rather see somebody give it 60% effort every day than 100% effort 1 day a week.
Yep.
And you're going to beat everybody on
Consistency beats everybody every time. Almost nobody's consistent.
Yeah.
Well, I think you bring up Elon Musk too. I just think he's working in his purpose. Like, the dude's got so much money. He could do whatever he wants forever.
And he has been able to do that for a long time. But he continues to show up.
Yes. I mean, he is genuinely working in his purpose and his passion. It's what he wants to do.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be there.
No, he wouldn't. But you look at guys like Jeff Bezos, who has also accomplished something incredible, and he's not doing that stuff anymore, and has also built something that has changed the world. And we don't really know, like, all right, is he happy per se? But he has to be fulfilling a purpose. He has to feel fulfilled. Otherwise, he wouldn't have built what he built, right? So I think when we a lot of times when people are trying to compare themselves, like, hey, being Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Thomas Jefferson, who said, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and the Declaration of Independence, whether or not these things happen in our lives, I think at the end of the day, most people just say, hey, where am I at? And how do I get closer to where I want to be? And I think fitness is a good place to start because it's something you can control with not a lot of resources. I mean,
there's no faking fitness, right? You were either fit or you're not.
Yeah, you can do push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups with nothing. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't need a gym membership. You can learn macros and eat correctly and get in really good physical shape by just learning macros and how the science of what you put in your mouth and how it impacts your body, right?
And how many sicknesses and diseases and things would be wiped out of this earth if people would just eat the right foods and they would heal themselves. I mean, I believe in God, right? So I believe God gave our bodies the gift to heal themselves if our bodies are given the right things and they're given the right environments.
Well, we are all a prime example because, I may get a sickness that lasts like 4 or 5 hours, but that's about it. In the past 5 years, that's about it.
Yeah.
Because of the habits and the discipline and the way that
it's
I
rare
treat
to get,
my body and
it's
the
rare to get sick
exercise.
longer than that, right? Like you had a cold, I think, on Monday, didn't you? A little bit.
I don't know. I don't really
Sniffles.
pay attention.
Yeah, but you don't have it now.
But that's the same thing. Like I'll
Yeah.
notice something, all of a sudden my throat feels funny, and it lasts 4 or 5 hours.
I refuse to tell anybody if it feels something. Kelsey's like,
don't give it any attention.
I'm like, yeah, no, I feel fine. Are you sure? Yeah, I feel great.
Which
I am sure.
Which how what does that say about the power of your thoughts and your beliefs? By the way,
Everything.
Don't give it any energy.
It's so
okay.
big.
So now, how do we relate this to sales? Strength, happiness, all the things that we talked about, discipline, habits. How do we relate it to sales?
Gosh,
Because what I've come to find is just like we were talking about, 99% of people have a gut. They don't have very much discipline. They got bad habits, but we're not talking to them. We're talking to maybe the people that have been there, but there's a 5% of people that we know that are maybe listening to a podcast for the first time and they're hearing a message and they're seeking new information and they're looking for something that can change their life. And what are the things that you can do? How does this relate to your sales and your career when it comes to strength and happiness?
Well, I think it goes. Oh, you're gonna say something?
unless you want to go
I
first.
think it goes hand in hand. It's like if someone's on the doors, for example, going door to door and getting rejection is not an easy thing to do, right? Just like going to the gym and putting yourself through pain is not an easy thing to do. So it's that mindset that says, yeah, I know this is hard, but it leads to a good result.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to the gym for one day and work out really hard, you don't notice it in the mirror. Just like in sales, if you go on the doors for one day and hit a ton of doors, you might not get the result you want. You might not see any result.
Almost never.
Yeah. And you might get lucky. Yeah, you might get lucky, but you shouldn't rely on luck to be successful in life. And so I think on the doors is one thing. How about overcoming objections? If someone's closing a sale, how often does the environment at the kitchen table get uncomfortable? And then because of that, they break the silence, and then they ruin the close because it was too uncomfortable, because they didn't like the feeling in the air. And so then they started talking, and they lost the sale.
All the time.
Or they didn't want to overcome the objection because they hadn't put in the hard work and the preparation prior, calling their coach, hey, I got this objection. This is what I said. This is what I should have said. And then they didn't role play that because it took a little bit of time. They had to work it, maybe later at night than they wanted to. And instead of paying that price, they showed up to a kitchen table unprepared, weren't able to overcome the objection, and they missed the sale. So the opposite is true as well. If you go do the activity, do the hard thing, maybe you don't get the result the first time, but you get the objection. Now you know you're probably going to get it next time, but now you're prepared. And then a lot of times when you're prepared, it's almost like you never get it. Mm-hmm. So then you close, and then you start getting results because you put in the effort and you prepared in advance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also, the very presence that you command, not that you're commanding it, but you command a certain presence when you know you've been doing the things you're supposed to be doing when nobody's watching. So some people might be going, man, I'm out of shape right now, or I'm not very good at sales right now, or whatever. Well, the question shouldn't be where you're at right now. The question should be more so, what trajectory are you on? If you're on the right trajectory, you should be proud of yourself. And if you're proud of yourself, you command a different presence when you present yourself to somebody.
Yeah.
When somebody answers that door, right, or you walk into an appointment, or you come into a room, when you're genuinely proud of yourself, and you can't fake it, because you know, when you look in the mirror, you know you can't lie to that dude looking back at you in the mirror. Mm-hmm. You know whether you've been doing the right things or not.
And everything counts. Absolutely, everything counts.
Everything counts.
I was taking my daughter to school this morning, and we're like way behind schedule. I was like, what happened this morning? It's already 8 o'clock. Usually you're there at like 7:45 and you're excited to see your friends. And she's like, well, I woke up 45 minutes late. I was like, wow. What happened? She says, well, I hit the snooze like 4 or 5 times. And I told her, I was like, yeah, I had a little, these are my incredible moments that I have with my daughter for a couple of minutes on the way to school.
Sure.
The only time that she's paying attention. But I said, listen, I want you to do something for me. I want you to get psyched up about when you're going to wake up in the morning and set one alarm and never hit the snooze button again.
Right.
Because whether you realize it or not, every time you hit that snooze button, you did something against what you said you were going to do.
Yep.
And
Good
just
point.
along the same lines that you were just talking about, that confidence, that belief in yourself comes from everything that you do and everything that you said you were going to do, and then your reaction to what you said.
Yeah.
And she hit the snooze button because I've been there, same thing. And as I started to build these habits and do what I said I was going to do, no matter who was watching or who knew, I just felt after, and it comes through reflection, like you're looking back, like what created all this?
Yep.
I just started doing what I said I was going to do, no
Yep.
matter who was watching.
Yep.
And I've always said that I was a person of integrity and grew up around a bunch of people that were integrous.
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden, I had this new confidence because whether anybody was watching or not, I was doing exactly what I said I was going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instills a mindset in you. You know, it's you think about, you know, we give the Salesforce scripts to use, and all those things are important and important to learn. But if you were to take mindset and thinking versus the script, and out of 100%, which one's more important? Like 99% is mindset. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And thinking.
100%.
I used to go into appointments all the time, and they'd met with somebody 2, 3, 4 times, seeing the exact same presentation, and they never got helped.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved those appointments because
Yeah.
I would go in there and I'd go, you know, this is doing financial services, but hey, you guys are a family, so you need life insurance. You don't have life insurance yet. You sat down with 3 other people with our company, and they didn't help you. Man, I'm sorry they didn't do their job. I apologize for them, but let me help you, right? And I loved going in there and doing a great job, great presentation, asked a lot of questions, got to know them, built their trust, gained their trust, built a relationship with them within, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, helped them protect their family, set up some investments, maybe even hired them into my firm. I love doing that
There's
stuff.
such a big difference between a confident and prepared salesperson like you were in those moments
Yeah.
and somebody who's a little nervous, who hasn't prepared, who's just looking for a slam dunk. Because I had very similar experiences in Windows early
Sure.
on.
Because how
And
many
even-
people haven't been knocked the same door?
Dude, we had this
Before you
happen
guys-
yesterday.
Hundreds.
We had this happen yesterday. Someone said they sat down on an appointment with this guy, and he says, "Oh, my brother-in-law works for XYZ Paint and Glass, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And so he's going to give me a wholesale cost, And I'm like, "Well, how long has this dude been your brother-in-law?" "Well, 5 years." So he's been your brother-in-law for 5 years, and he still hasn't given you a wholesale cost? What kind of brother-in-law is that?
Right.
Exactly.
So 5
Right.
years ago, you said the same thing. Now you're saying the same thing. So, like, are you going to go another 5 years? And
Yeah.
But
think
that's
about how much that's cost you.
And that guy is so experienced.
Yeah.
So he's doing everything because he's confident, because he's convinced that this is right for them. He's
Yep.
going to do whatever in his power to get that person to help them realize
And to close.
that this is the right decision for you.
Yep.
I know that I'm bringing value, and I'm going to close this deal.
Yep.
And I had so many of those where people would be so proud. They'd lay out 5 estimates on their coffee table. 3 or 4 or 5. I remember this one guy specifically because he had 5, and he's like, if you can beat these, I'll go with you. I was like, well, you obviously want to do this. You spent the time to sit down with 5 people,
And I'm number 6.
and I was number 6. And I was excited every time I ran into one of those guys because I knew that I was more prepared and I was more convicted in what I offered and the value I was going to bring him and the product that I was representing. And almost every single one of those times when people were so proud of letting me know that they're not buying nothing unless I could beat this, I was almost never less than any of those.
Right.
I was usually up at the top end. But all of a sudden, because of the confidence, because of the conviction and what I was representing and just the energy that I brought to the situation as a prepared salesman versus an unprepared, instead of getting deflated by all that, I was excited. And almost every single one of them I won.
Well, and that's because you know the questions to ask, you know the value you're bringing. You know, are we just trying to sell on price, which most amateur people do? You know, hey, if I'm cheaper, then I could sell any. Well, of course, but then eventually you price yourself out of the market, and there's no money to be made, right?
Yeah.
So it just doesn't seem like a good trajectory. Which you talked about trajectory, and I wrote down here. It's like trajectory is the same as direction, and a lot of times people want motivation instead of discipline. Right? There's a lot of people who get motivated to go to the gym, but they don't actually discipline enough to put themselves through pain once they're there.
I keep going, yeah.
Yeah. And so the same thing is like, you know, maybe hearing you have to do the hard things and you've got to be prepared and you've got to learn how to overcome objections and you got to be willing to go to the next appointment. These things aren't motivating, but if you're not going in the right direction, if you're not on the right trajectory and someone motivates you, now you're just really motivated and moving faster in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you got momentum in the wrong direction.
Yes, and so at some point you have to realize like it doesn't, a lot of times, you don't have to do a 180. You just got to move towards the right direction. So it's not that you need motivation. You need discipline because it is tough. It is hard to get uncomfortable and do the things that cause success.
And if you choose to do those hard things, choose to love those hard things instead of love the comfort. It's a training issue in our brains. I'm telling you, if I get comfortable, I'm so uncomfortable. I've just trained myself to be that way. If things are like,
yeah, it's like the alarm's going off.
Yeah. It's like just relax.
This feels way too comfortable.
I can't just relax. Like something's wrong if I'm just relaxing. Well, that doesn't sound very healthy. I disagree. I think in fact, I know I'm happiest when I'm moving in a direction of hard work and discipline and focus and purpose. And
it's noticeable for some people, because me and Jeff have both noticed in you when you're lacking that and you're seeking it.
Dude.
And I know that you're
100%.
noticing it also, but
100%.
it's noticeable in some people when you know that they've got all this potential and they could offer so much value and they're just not tapping into it. You can feel something's different.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, winners notice it always because they've been through it, right? Everybody who's ever been successful at anything obviously went through all of these steps in order to get there. So that's how I think you can see it in other people. And that's why it's important to be willing to go through it, because ultimately I think if we're going to talk about happiness, I think you become happy when you become selfless. So when you start thinking about other people and pouring into other people, but you can't pour into somebody else if you haven't already achieved enough for yourself, right? It's like if you're on an airplane and they say if the cabin loses pressure and the air mask comes out of the ceiling, what do they tell you to do? Put it on yourself first, because if you pass out on the process, you can't help anybody else.
Yep.
So the same thing is with success. You've got to get yourself right first so you can actually become selfless.
Okay, now that we're on this topic, as it relates to sales teams, because we've each had somebody in our lives that started helping us with our perspective and how we start to implement some of these things in our life. It doesn't just happen, because none of us came from a background where we were around this all the time and exposed to it and knew about it.
Right.
We had to develop, we had to read books, we had to watch the podcasts, we had to listen to the people around us and become exposed. And sometimes we have an opportunity as leaders, talking about leaders and becoming selfless, to start introducing people to these concepts in our sales meetings where they're coming from all kinds of different backgrounds, maybe similar to us, and have never been exposed to this type of stuff before.
Right.
Man, I used to listen. Do you guys know what a cassette tape is? I used to listen to cassette tapes, right? That's how long ago I was doing this stuff. And I would wear those cassette tapes out, but that's a good question.
That must have been the year you bought the bands. You and Billy Blank. So it wasn't Billy Blank. I'm sure he had a cassette tape.
No, it was what's that? No, it was Richard. What's that Richard guy?
Richard Simmons.
Richard Simmons. That's where I got the bands from.
Do you have the outfit too?
Jazzercise.
I probably have it somewhere. Yeah.
And the headband.
He got me started. No, but I think we digress. Okay, we're back on track.
Sorry, dude. We got to have some fun. We have to have some fun.
But I believe that all of that is important. Books, podcasts, all that. But I think what's even more important than that is more is caught than taught.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to catch something, you've got to be around it, you know? And so thank goodness I was hired into a company where I was able to be around people that were mega successful, much more successful than me. I was able to attend the meetings. So they'd you know, say the meeting's going to be at this time and this person's going to come and speak. And I was like early, stayed there, took a ton of notes, fought for the front row, and took it very serious, as if, and this is the mistake I see a lot of people make maybe in sales or door-to-door. Oh, it's door-to-door, it's temporary. And I think it's a temporary thing, and so they treat it as a thing. I didn't do that when I got into sales. I got into sales, and I thought to myself, you know what? If I was going to go be a doctor, I'd have to go to school for, I don't know how long it is, 8 to 12 years, right, before I even became a doctor. It's a profession, right? I looked at sales as if I was going to be a doctor in business. And so it was my residency. You know, when I got into sales, I thought to myself, if I made no money my first 4 years and all I did was learn for 4 years, I'm still ahead of being a doctor.
Yep.
And I didn't make no money. I made 20 grand, then 100 grand, then 183, then 230, then 330 my first 4 years. So my like graduating college, I was already making 300-400 grand a year because I had that mindset.
Yep.
And if people would take that mindset and bring it into, let's say, JKR, for example, and they had that mindset, they'd be making 2 or 3 times that probably in 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, probably a lot more than that, actually.
Yeah.
But they got to have that same kind of mindset, you know. So I think catching it, more is caught than taught. But to catch it, you got to get yourself in front of people that have got it already.
You've got to be seeking.
You've got to,
the
I wrote
information.
down, you've got to intentionally build relationships, which
Good.
is not always hard for one man to do with another man. You know, sometimes that's uncomfortable because, you know, most of us aren't taught to do that in our lives. Like, hey, I want to build a relationship with someone I look up to and have enough humility to say, hey, I want to learn from
Bury
you.
the ego. We don't like to ask for help sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's like, you know, it's. I think it's a known thing. Ask a dude to ask for directions, you know. It's like, nah, I'll figure it out.
Especially if somebody's maybe in the business less time than you or younger than you, right?
Yeah.
But yet they're just rocking and kicking butt. It's like, dude, this person's doing something I'm not doing,
Yeah.
and I got to be willing to learn. And I'd,
Yeah,
I'd be an idiot not to listen to that. I don't care how old they are, how much. That
Yeah, I
stuff
think if
becomes
you're
irrelevant.
around somebody, because the thing that I hope everybody understands, you know, you've said mindset, Jefferson, you've said mindset many times. The way you think determines the way you act, and the way you act determines the results you get. So some people say, oh, well, I think just like you, or I think just like this person. It's like, no, you don't. Otherwise, you'd have got those results. But that doesn't mean you can't, right? So you've got to be around that thinking long enough to where you actually it becomes part of your belief system. Because I guarantee we've said some things today that there's somebody listening and they go, I don't know if I agree with that. Well, that's a belief that you have. And that belief is leading you to act a certain way, which is why you're getting a certain result. So the only way you can actually change your result is to change your belief system. And the only way you can change your belief system is start changing your thinking habits. What happens on a natural or on a automatic basis in your mind? Your subconscious mind is creating these certain thoughts that sometimes you don't even realize, right? And most people don't think about, like, we're the only species that can think about what we're thinking about. So if you started doing that on a daily basis, are you thinking about what you're thinking about? Because that is your belief system. And your belief system is leading you to act a certain way. And if you want to change your belief system, you got to get around people that challenge it. And it's uncomfortable. And you got to be around people that are just like, man, I'm just not doing as good as I could be doing.
I think also a lot of times as you start to change your belief systems, sometimes things get worse before they get better, right? Again, take working out again. You go work out, you're sore as heck. Things are worse before they get better. And it's the same thing in life. And that's what happens to a lot of people is they go, I'm going to try that new belief system, or I'm going to go start living that way. And their life changes and it appears worse for a bit. And then they go, this doesn't work, and they quit. Instead of realizing, look, you're on a peak right now. You want to get to this other peak. You're going to have to go through the valley to get to the peak. The next peak, right? So
It
you
is
gotta be willing to go
darkest right before the sun comes up.
yeah. So you got to when you. I mean, look, we're all smart enough, I hope, to look at and go, okay, that person's thinking is where I need to get to. I'm over here right now. I got to go through that valley. It's probably going to get worse before I get to that peak, but hopefully you're wise enough to go, I just have to keep going till I get there.
Just keep pushing.
Right.
Stay consistent.
Well, I just feel like most people will just always focus on the result. They're like trying to control the outcome. It's like, but if you thought a certain way, that would be automatic. Like the result is a byproduct of the way you're thinking.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have the opportunity to do, so on an individual basis, you got to get around people that are challenging your thinking, opening up new possibilities and creating new perspectives. You're now observing yourself and your own thinking for the first time sometimes, because you always have that ability to think about what you're thinking about and to be intentional about it. But most people don't, because they've never even heard of that concept.
Right.
Like, I didn't know that I had to think about what I'm thinking about
Yep.
until you get around people that start to introduce that. Like, you have to control your entire environment, your mind, the people you hang out with, the type of things that you allow into your space when it comes to music and news and social media and even people.
Yeah, most of the world is programming us to not think.
And just to go throughout life, drifting is what Napoleon Hill calls it.
Yeah.
Just drifting. 95% of people just drift through life, and they don't even realize that they need to think about what they're thinking about. But as leaders, we have an opportunity. Even if somebody doesn't stay here at JKR Windows, we got a short window to introduce some new concepts to them. And had I never stayed with Primerica, which I didn't, but there was a short window when I was involved in Primerica that all of these new concepts got introduced into my awareness.
Right.
And now I will never be the same after being introduced to these things. Reading and writing my goals and thinking about what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And starting to become somebody who is disciplined and has good habits versus bad habits. And it took me a while to implement these things. But here at JKR Windows, that's something we talk about on a regular basis.
Yep.
I just met this kid yesterday that came in. He's so excited to be here. He watched the podcast, and he's excited. He brought somebody in. He's getting ready to mentor him, and he's like kind of stoked about regurgitating some of the stuff that he's learned. And it was so cool to see his reaction coming from wherever he came from. I don't even know him. But this is so different for him that you can just see the excitement pouring out of him.
Yeah.
And we've got this opportunity every time we sit down with a group of people to talk about their personal, professional, and financial goals. And to kind of train and develop them to think in these new ways and offer new perspective and help them start to observe themselves instead of just drift through life. That's one of the things that I love, and I think you said it earlier, is as a result of some of these things, you're helping people develop purpose and fulfillment, which leads to incredible happiness through your life.
Right.
Even if it's only for a short window.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and people remember how they feel more than they remember what they heard, right? And so they come here and they feel it, and our job is to continue to help them grow that feeling so it becomes permanent, you know? Because the fact is, you start something new, you start a new way of thinking, you get around your current environment of your current family or friends, and naturally they're going to attack you because that's just kind of human nature, right?
It is.
And you've got to have the ability to say, hey, you know what? They think a certain way, that's why they're where they're at, but this new group of people that I'm getting involved with, they're where I want to go and they're where I want to be, and you got to remember to keep plugging in to the areas you want to go to, right? So
That's influence, man. That's what leadership is. If you can influence other people, then ultimately you're leading. If somebody's taking that advice, that knowledge, they're learning from you, they're watching your actions, they're paying attention how you treat others. And I ultimately think that's the most important thing we can do in life.
Yep. And I think too, we have the opportunity to attract success into our lives. I think we attract success more than we create success. And you can't attract it if you're not thinking the right way. So keep that in mind too. What is your thinking? What are you doing to have the right thinking so you can attract what you want in your life? Sales and everything. You know, I know we keep talking about, you know, being on the doors or your presentation when you sat down with someone who's already sat down with someone who's already given them the window presentation or whatever. And, you know, there's a I guess a mentality that you have when you come into a situation like that, where you just, you know you're going to do the right thing for them. And you can't fake that. You got to have the preparation in place before you ever get to that moment. And then when you get to that moment, you can actually capitalize on it.
Yeah, no doubt. You got to be prepared, though. You got to be ready for it, and you got to be willing to go through the pain of failing a bunch of times and missing the sale.
It don't happen without the work.
Yep. having someone quit on you, and all these things that are challenging in the moment are also the things you look back on. This is why they always say, "Oh, the joy is in the journey," and I'm like, no, the joy is not in the journey. In fact, the journey sucks. Let's face it. It hurts. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. And that is not the joyful part. It's the part you appreciate once you make it to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you only hear successful people say that, unless you hear somebody going through it and then they're trying to convince themselves that it's worth it, right? But you never hear someone going through it, man, like, I love this pain. I love these challenges. I love this stuff. In fact, it sucks. And it's okay for it to be uncomfortable. But what's important is you keep going, you get to the other side, and then when you do get to the other side and you succeed in whatever it is you're trying to succeed in, you go, man, I'm so grateful for this challenge or that person that quit or this person that gave me the objection, because that's what made it all worth it. If it was easy, it wouldn't be a reward.
Yeah, choose to love that. I mean, you can, like you're saying, it does suck to go through it, but it's like, I'm telling you, everything. I get up in the morning, I go, I'm going to go do that stupid cold plunge, and it sucks, but I'm going to choose to love it. I like choose to.
But you have progressed to that.
I did
That's the
progress to
different
that.
perspective.
I did.
Yes.
But it's a choice.
Yes,
and
it is. I totally
it's
agree.
a decision, and you got to do it over and over. I mean, I never loved it. I still don't love it, but I choose. I'm going to love it, right?
You choose to love the result. You choose to love the result, and I think it is a muscle. It is a muscle that you strengthen every time you face hard shit, and you do it anyway. Mm-hmm. It is a muscle. It's a muscle in our minds that you were talking about with your daughter. Every time you press the snooze button, it's almost like trying to put a square peg into a round hole. Every time you do it, it rounds the edges a little bit. And it makes you average. It makes you different. Every time you press the snooze button, every time you avoid the gym, every time you eat a Twinkie instead of an apple, every time you go home instead of knock another door, every time you don't ask for the check and you didn't overcome the objection because they gave it to you and you weren't prepared. All of those things are what lead to mediocrity. And it's easier to not do those things. It is hard to say, you know what, I'm going to go home and I'm going to study this objection so I never get that damn thing again. I am going to knock another door, even though I'm at 150 doors today. I'm going to end at 160 today. I said I was going to set 2 appointments, but I'm going to set 3. I said I was going to go to the gym today and work out 45 minutes. I'm going to go an hour. These are mental habits that if we build up over time, it's never comfortable, but it leads to us falling in love with the result. And so that's when the emotion of, hey, a cold plunge? Yeah. People always ask me, does it get easier? No, it never gets easier. It's uncomfortable every single time.
Sucks every time.
Every time.
And you know what? As we wrap up here, I think one of the
real quick before you wrap up, I would just challenge everybody. Anytime you have a choice to go easy way or hard time, I challenge you, take the hard way. The right path is always uphill, right? So that's a pretty easy thing in life. I can go the easy way or I can go the challenging way. Of course, you want to have the reward at the end. You don't want to do stupid things, but just keep that in mind. To me, I mean, harder or easier, I'm going harder. Like anyway.
And I think we'd said this right at the beginning. Everybody knows that. You know this.
Yep.
Like if you want to do something special, you're going to have to do hard shit.
Yeah.
And if there's an opportunity for you to take the easy road, and it's very clear that this is going to be the easy way, and this one's going to be challenging, but there's opportunity, we justify going this way. And it's just human nature. And all of this comes back to the way that we think about things. And train yourself to think like successful people, like Brandon just explained. This is something that he didn't always have. He was able to develop this over time and start to recognize these natural tendencies in himself. That we have a natural tendency as humans to preserve and to go the easy way. But you've got an opportunity to take this other route that's going to be difficult and it's unknown, it's uncertain, it's going to have a ton of obstacles on this route. But on the other side of it, after you've been through it so many times, you're able to recognize that, man, look at all the freaking growth and opportunity that came from choosing to do that hard way.
The reward is always in direct proportion to the price. Always. You want a bigger reward? You're going to have to pay a bigger price.
Bigger price, bigger risk, bigger obstacles, bigger unknown crazy things that you're going to have to do.
Yep.
And we're not talking about dangerous. We're not talking about stupid, irresponsible. We're talking about calculated. You are two of the most calculated dudes that I've ever met. But you have chosen to do crazy, ridiculous shit that most people would just not have chosen to do that has led to your success. And the same thing can happen in your sales career and in your teams. If you want to become successful and increase your ability to earn income and influence people, it's not going to be by taking the easy route.
Right.
Amen.
You got to adjust your thinking. You got to change your natural tendencies. We see so many people that have all of these incredible potentials, and we hear the way they just openly talk about all of their natural tendencies to take the easy way and to talk about things and to explain all their emotional feelings about the way that this is perceived to them.
Yep.
And even though it is hard, you guys may be talking about it on the podcast, but I'm never going to talk about how hard the cold plunge is in front of my wife and my kids.
No,
I'm never going to go back out here in front of all my people and tell them how difficult today was.
So what?
Doesn't do any good.
Like, what does that have to do with anything, though?
It
Like, at the end of the day, even if it is hard, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Like, what does that have to do with anything? So what?
Yep.
Like, so what? I've always, and you've heard me say this, I would always ask my people when they tell me something or whatever and it didn't align, I'd say, so what does that have to do with you winning? Like, that's what I want to know right now. So
Yep.
this statement you just made,
good
I just want
question.
to know, what does it have to do with you winning?
Mm-hmm.
And that could apply to your marriage, could apply to your faith, it could apply to finance, it could apply to anything in life. And if you ask yourself all the time, the statement that I just made or the action that I'm just getting ready to take or not take, what does that have to do with me winning? And if it has nothing to do with me winning, I shouldn't be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's going to cause me to win and get closer to my goals, then I'm going for it, no matter how uncomfortable it is. If it hurts, so what? It's uncomfortable, so what?
So as it pertains to talking about it, because you guys have much different perspectives on like being happy in the moment and enjoying the journey, and versus your perspective, which is this fucking sucks.
Yep.
And I don't enjoy this, but I know that it's necessary, and be able to look back and reflect and be grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's two different perspectives. The one difference, though, or the similarity, I guess, is that whether it's hard or whether you're in the moment just gutting through some shit and trying to enjoy it, you're not really openly talking about your feelings about stuff in front of people, in front of your family, in front of your teammates.
Yeah.
You just do what is necessary, and you develop the muscle to think about what you're thinking about and how you're going to perceive it and how you're going to react to it or respond, and just keep pushing forward.
Let me give you some.
It's called stoicism,
Let me give you a
right?
controversial statement. Yeah, stoicism. I don't even think your feelings matter. I tell my kids every day, you're the one in control of your feelings.
Think about this. Can you imagine?
You don't like the feeling, stop feeling it.
You imagine all the people that have fought for our freedom in our country, and if they would have told the enemy, "Man, this sucks. Man, I'm having a hard day today. Man." They didn't do that. George Washington didn't do that when he was leading the Revolutionary War, and he didn't do that.
You know how I feel about it? It does suck. I'm just going to make it suck for them worse.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
I promise you, if we're going to war, I'm going to make it hurt for you worse. As bad as it hurts for me, it's going to hurt for you worse because I'm willing to put up with it. So I don't know if you are. I think it was Muhammad Ali, where he said in the ring, he said, I don't know that anybody's ever willing to beat me, because in order for them to be willing to beat me, they have to be willing to die right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think they are. I don't think anybody's willing, and I could be wrong on who that is. It's like, I don't think they're willing to get in the ring, and I don't think they're willing to die tonight. But I am.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for most people, they're so worried about how they feel. Like, so what? You're in control of your emotions. I don't care how you feel. What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. See, there's so many people, I'm just thinking of the world right now, they would listen to you, Jeff. They go, Jeff's so extreme. He's so extreme. See, this is the problem with the world,
Is it,
man.
though?
It's
Is it-
not. It's
is it
not.
really
No, that's what I'm
extreme?
saying. It's not.
Like, come on.
This is where we need to be in the world today. This is the correction we need to be making. Is we need to be thinking that way as men that are leading our families and our businesses and people around us. We need to be at this level. And if you're not there right now,
I don't think much has changed, though, in the world today, because really successful people have always thought like that.
Yes.
And they're
Yes.
always open about speaking about the things that have led to their success.
yes,
And there's always going to be the 95 to 99% of people that are offended by that. And they say you're too extreme. And those are the people that aren't quite ready for the message. But there is 1 to 5% of people that are like, you know what? I like the way that guy thinks.
Right.
And I've been too effing soft, and maybe I need to start thinking like that. And
Yeah.
that's always going to be the case. Maybe that number is shrinking.
I would just say, you're the one that's extreme. You're the one that has high highs and low lows. You're the one that's up and down all the time.
Yeah.
You're the one that starts and stops all the time.
good point.
I
Yeah.
just
They're so good at
consistently
justifying
go.
it,
So
though.
who is the one that's extreme? When I like, Dude, anybody around me knows I'm pretty damn predictable. My attitude and energy is pretty much the same always.
Yeah.
And that's a choice.
No, the world has definitely changed, I believe, because of the comforts of the world. I think there's so much more comforts in the world today that overall more people are weaker today than they were 100, 200 years ago. And, you see that with, just look at history, read history. Soldiers used to walk 20, 30 miles with 40, 50 pounds of armor on and then go to battle.
Yeah.
You ever tried hiking with a 40-pound pack on all day hunting and you're tired,
Yep, did it.
So, yeah.
It was not easy.
So I'm telling you, I do think the world has become weaker, but it's also because the world has become more comfortable. And I think it's important that we recognize that and that we are always challenging that, whatever you want to call it, that environment or whatever you want to call it, to, hey, we've got to continue to step up. We can't allow the comforts of the world to weaken us as not just men and also women, right? Women, there's a lot of tough women out there too, right? We all as a society need to be careful that the comforts of the world today, we don't allow those comforts to make us weak.
Yeah, I think two books that come to mind as we've been talking today is one is The Comfort Crisis, as you're talking about. That's a phenomenal book. I think everybody should read. And then the other one is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which is the definition of, creating stoicism, what we were just talking about. These are not new philosophies. What we're talking about is thousands of years of success principles that are written down and documented, especially in a book like Marcus Aurelius. But I don't know when it was written. I think like 580 or something, right? So
and they're universal.
Ago. Yes.
So as many years ago as that was, there's been thousands of books written since then, and everybody talks about the same things in just their own perspective or opinion of what that is. But if you can make a correlation between every one of those principles, and there's a book called The Success Principles. There's 67 of them, and there may even be more, but they're all universal. And they're all the same exact principles that Marcus Aurelius was talking about thousands of years ago.
Books have been written. Audios have been recorded. We just need more doers.
More doers. Don't get too comfortable. And if you do, make sure that you're paying attention so you can get yourself out of that comfort zone and continue back into growth. Keep checking back in every week for more Just Real Quick podcast. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on with us today.
Thanks for
sharing
having us.
all the knowledge and wisdom. And if you know somebody that could benefit from this message, share. Send them a link. Tell them about it. What'd you get from it? Change somebody's life with a message. Could be a book, could be the Just Real Quick podcast. But we've got an opportunity and an obligation to share the things that we're going through in life to help inspire and build belief in other people that it's possible for them too. Keep coming back for more. Like and subscribe to the Just Real Quick podcast. See you guys next time.